Tate Chronicles now transmitting.
Welcome to the Tate Chronicles on Healthcare Now Radio. And now, here's your host, Jim Tate.
Good day, citizens of the free world, from border to border, coast to coast, and Charlie, to all the ships at sea.
All the ships at sea, Jim.
To our listeners, thanks for joining me on this episode of the Tate Chronicles. We are recording live at HIMSS26, and with me is longtime friend of the show, Charlie Harp, CEO of Clinical Architecture.
Delighted to be here.
Charlie, I want to start at the meta level, then we'll move down to the micro level little bit. So, obviously, AI is a big deal. Giant deal in healthcare, as we're seeing here at HIMSS. What's going to separate those organizations that see the real value and are able to implement that value, as opposed to those organizations that really struggle to take advantage of the promise of these technologies? What are you seeing out there, Charlie?
I think it's a combination of, really, for me, it all boils down to the quality of the information that we train everything on and the quality of information we use to prompt whatever LLM we're using for whatever purpose.
You know, one of the things I know I've heard you describe something called the illusion of high quality structured data in EHR. What is that illusion that we think it's all
the hallucination we have?
Yes, yeah.
I think that we tend to look at the data that we have, and it operates within the silo for the most part. The data we use inside of an EHR, for the most part, allows you to operate the EHR. So we think, hey, the data's fine. It's doing what it's supposed to do. The problem is when we try to take that data out, when we try to use it for purposes that aren't purely operational, we try to share that data, it's really not fit for purpose. And we have to get to the point where we realize that, and we realize that there's going to have to be work that has to be done if we realistically want to be able to share that data, or even use that data downstream in our own implementations to do things like high quality analytics, AI, clinical decision support. These are all things, or even just putting them in front of a human being. If I put bad information in front of a human being, they're not going to make good decisions.
Well, Charlie, one of the things I think about is, of course, we've got this latest giant attempt at interoperability called TEFCA. So TEFCA's got all the pipes and plumbing out there. But are you telling me the quality of the water, that data that's flowing through those pipes, is going to be problematic even if the pipes are secure?
I don't know that it's water yet.
I know.
There are pipes. Yeah. Well, I think that there's a couple of things, and I said this in a panel the other day. I think when it comes to interoperability, we're still in our adolescence of interoperability. Mm-hmm. There are issues. We built the pipes, and if you look at anything that we do with technology, the physical interoperability, the physical connection is the first thing we have to do, and then we evolve from there. Mm-hmm. I think that now we're creating these pipes, we're creating really the trusted framework where we're allowed to exchange things with each other with HIPAA and everything. I think the next step is understanding how do we get the quality to the point where it's worth sharing the data, where somebody can take the data and do something meaningful with it. And then there are other things like, how do we don't really have a good way today of identifying where the data actually came from. And we have people that share all the data they got from everyone else.
Yes.
So all we're doing is creating this echo where I'm going to get information back that I gave to you yesterday. And I may not even know that was the information I gave you because it's been changed since I gave it to you. So I think that we have some very fundamental things we have to figure out to get from pushing the data around to actually sharing the data in a meaningful way.
Well, kind of going back to TEFCA, just a minute, and those the QHINs, those health, and I don't know how many there are now, 7 or 8. Maybe there's going to be many of those. And some of those QHINs do a pretty good job, or attempt to do a pretty good job of cleaning up the data, just at the most basic level of clearing out redundant prescriptions and stuff like that. Some of them probably do a much better job, so it's kind of all over the map. How is the work that you're doing, or how do you see that can be kind of fixed?
Part of the challenge we have right now is that the quality of the data, quality is an adjective. It's like a quality used car. Yeah. It's very subjective. So people do the things they look at and they kind of determine what the quality is. The work we're doing with the Patient Information Quality Improvement Framework.
I want to talk about that,
and the PICI Alliance, the idea is that we want quality to be a noun. We want to be able to say that based upon this scorecard, this rubric, the data quality score is X. Because then it becomes a question of, I can't tell you my quality is good. I have to prove that my quality is good. And I do that with a shared perspective on what does quality mean. And I think if we can do that, and we can make that part of the way we share data, where whenever I get data from somebody, the first thing I look at is what's the objective quality of their data using, let's say, the USCDI version 3.1 scorecard.
Yes.
If the quality is good enough, I can tell the data is going to be usable.
So what's on the scorecard? I mean, what are the check boxes, that kind of make up a good score? Is it code systems? Is it whether it's codified discrete data or PDFs? I mean, what makes up that score?
So the thing about the way PICI works is the scorecard, you establish a scorecard based upon a use case.
Okay.
So the one that we just finished is around USCDI. And if you look at USCDI 3.1, it says lab tests will use LOINC. You'll have a unit that uses this unit nomenclature. And what we basically do is a simple numerator denominator. So we take USCDI version 3, we analyze the data in the payload without PHI, and we come back and say, we looked at all the things that we said you had to have, all the things that had to be in certain code systems, things that had to have certain values, and for every one you got right, you get a point. If your score is 90%, then, out of 1,000 tests, let's say you got 900 of them right. And it's funny because people ask me, what's a passing score?
Yeah.
I would argue if you build a rubric, if you build a scorecard that kind of is like, here's the minimal thing that makes the data usable.
Yes.
Your score is
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
And so really what a score below 100 tells you is how much work you have to do to make the data usable. Now, along those lines, if all I care about is medications, let's say I'm doing some kind of med reconciliation.
Sure.
Then I could say, you know what, I don't care about labs and allergies. I just care about the meds.
Yeah.
So if the meds are at 100%, that means I can use all the medication data and I'm good to go.
So if a EHR vendor wanted to test the quality of their data, would they generate a CCDA, a transition of care document based on USCDI version 3.1 and give it to y'all and you run it through the black box?
Well, and it's not a black box.
I know.
It's actually a very transparent box.
Okay.
But what they could do, like for example, we have a connectathon, an HL7 connectathon,
right?
Because we're putting PICI through HL7 balloting, and they come to the connectathon and run data through, and get the score. But the thing that's interesting is you talk about EHRs. When I talk about PICI, a lot of people say, well, the hospitals don't care about the data they're sharing. They don't care about the quality. But the point you bring up about them actually putting their data through PICI and seeing what it looks like, my argument is, and maybe I'm an optimist, but I say, since we don't have a way to score the data in a standard way, they probably don't know what the quality of their data is.
Right.
And if we can score the data, and the other cool thing that PICI does is it doesn't just give you a score, it tells you what is actually causing the problem so you can fix it. And so really, it's like those old commercials that only your best friend will tell you that you have halitosis or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If we can measure the quality of their data and say, these are the things you need to do to fix to make your data usable by others, I'm optimistic that they'll do it.
Bring me up to speed a little bit on it, Charlie. So is this happening now? Are people submitting data?
I mean, we've gone through a big beta process.
Yes.
Clinical architecture. We have a commercial implementation of PICI called the Pixel Gateway.
Yes.
And we've signed up 2 HIEs that are going to be using it. We've just completed the first pass on the USCDI version 3 rubric. And that's all the stuff we do with PICI is open source. It's in the public domain. And so we're optimistic that people will start to adopt it. And honestly, we have almost 200 people that have asked to be involved in PICI Alliance. And we're seeing a lot of momentum. I gave the panel yesterday, and Ryan Howells asked people to raise their hands if they heard of PICI, and almost everybody in the audience raised their hands,
really?
which was a very humbling experience for me. It was very cool. So I think that there's such a tailwind around AI, and people really want AI to be successful. And I think they're starting to realize that the quality of our data is something that could take AI and make it into something that is really problematic for our industry. And so, I've been waiting for 37 years for people to realize we need to fix the quality of the data. So, I think AI has a lot of potential, but only if we're able to actually feed it something usable.
Charlie, I've been waiting on this for longer than your 37 years. One thing that, and folks have talked about the quality of data for some time, but this is the first time I've really heard of a objective process to come up and see and score and test. So yeah, I think it's pretty exciting.
Honestly, the whole thing with Picky was kind of an accident.
Really?
I gave a presentation at AMIA on data quality taxonomy, and it kind of took me down a rabbit hole, and I ended up doing a project for ONC, now ASTP, around lab data quality. And I'm like, you know what? This is something that, I build products for a living, and I told my team, we could make a product or we could make a difference. And I think in healthcare, this is a moment where we can actually turn the corner and hopefully take healthcare IT and have it really help with some of the heavy lifting, because we desperately need it with the amount of data and the other factors that are happening in our industry right now. We need to find a way to allow technology to play a very meaningful role in how we do our jobs better.
Charlie, can't believe it, but our bosses in the back room just signaled we only have a couple more minutes, and there's something else I want to touch base with you about.
All right.
So you've got this application called SciMedical, or?
Yeah, SciMedical.
What's that? What does that do?
So the SciMedical product is the product we built in 2009, and basically it's a tool for creating content, for doing semantic normalization at scale, and it uses an old school deterministic AI called the Cognition Engine to do that. And we've deployed that across our client base. It's been operational for 15 years, and it'll do about 92% of the normalization work for clinical data, regardless of the domain.
And you talked about clinical data. Does it help provide the right codes, if the codes?
Oh, yeah.
Because normally there'd have to be somebody reading things and saying this means that, and I'm going to click here and code.
Well, part of the reason I built it back in the day, it was another accidental thing, is I got involved in looking at people doing mapping, and I realized that mapping, terminology mapping, is like a clinical sweatshop. People locked in rooms working on spreadsheets.
There are no windows down there. There are no windows.
Exactly. So I thought I want to free those people. I want to put technology to work and let the clinical people go back to doing clinical things.
That's a good use case. Charlie, thanks for joining me on this episode of the Tate Chronicles. We are live at HIMSS 2026 in Las Vegas. Thanks so much for coming.
Jim, I appreciate you having me on. It's the biggest win I'm having in Las Vegas while I'm here.
Okay, good. That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome back to the Tate Chronicles, recorded live at HIMSS 2026. I'm your host, Jim Tate, and my second guest is none other than Dr. Joel Salamon, who's the Medical Director of Pain Management at Modernizing Medicine. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good to meet you in person. First, can you give me a very high-level overview of ModMed and what your role is there?
Sure. So ModMed is a company that provides a full suite of software to a practicing physician that allows them to run a practice. So we've developed everything you might need. I use all of it in my own practice, which is a practice management software. So from the time a patient checks in,
right,
to an EHR, which I use every time I see a patient to document it, to now even, revenue collections, we call it Boost, to do the collections for us.
Well, are you in primary care?
No, I'm a pain management specialist.
Okay, pain management, yeah.
And I work 3 days a week in my clinic, and I work 2 days a week for ModMed.
Yeah. Where are you based?
I'm in Florida.
Okay, where in Florida?
South Florida. So my offices are in Miami Lakes and Weston.
Yeah, I know it well, yeah. I was mentioning to you before we started the conversation that I've been involved with many EHRs and EHR development. I'm always shocked about how there's not much provider input to the developers on what makes sense. Why is that important to ModMed?
So let me step back.
Good.
So ModMed was started about 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Kane, who's the guy who developed the platform Blackboard that they use in schools, just went to a dermatologist, Dr. Michael Sherling, for a routine skin check. Dr. Sherling hated his EHR. So he was talking to Dan Kane saying, how can we make something better? And that's where ModMed started. From the beginning, ModMed was designed as a company that is, I guess, by physicians for physicians. So all the coding of the medical content within the EHR is done by physicians. Dr. Sherling figured it's a whole lot easier to teach physicians to code than it is to teach coders medicine.
Yeah.
So
sure.
basically, all the medical content within ModMed, including Scribe 2.0, was done by the physicians.
You mentioned Scribe 2.0. What's that?
That's our ambient listening, our AI solution. Basically, we started off, like everybody, with ChatGPT.
Yep.
ChatGPT does a great job at listening to a conversation and producing a summary. Awesome. Kind of helpful, but then you have to cut and paste the summary into your note. It just wasn't good enough. So what we decided to do was create specialty-specific verticals and train them with AI by the physicians who actually use those specialties. And what that entailed was not only using basically ChatGPT as your base, but then training it to understand the nuances of a medical conversation. So in example, my patients, they come in, if they complain of, I have pain, numbness, and tingling running down my leg, that's the way a layperson would describe it. Our system now, being trained by us, will then convert that into the diagnosis lumbar radiculopathy because it understands the nuance of the conversation, the ebb and flow.
Sure.
More importantly, it then takes every part of the conversation and then puts it in our note in the appropriate place. Our impression in the chief complaint, our discussion into the summary. It will even take our orders that we describe to a patient. I'm going to start you on diclofenac, 75 milligrams, whatever, and then create an order. So when I see a patient now, I put my iPad down, I click record, and I just have a conversation. That's it. I do not touch it again until I'm done. It puts in my history of present illness. It puts in my physical exam in the appropriate place.
Right.
It puts in my MRI or X-ray readings in the appropriate place that's required for medical decision-making and, when the coding for the thing. It puts in the proper codes, the ICD-10 codes, the CPT codes, everything, including modifiers, all automatically because that's how we trained it to do it.
It is ambient AI. My own physician, internist that I see, he's been using ambient AI and probably for about a year now. And providers I know, the adoption rate exceeds, I think, the adoption rate of smartphones. Because when providers see it, they want it. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting, you mentioned the physical exam that maybe providers didn't do out loud. They now have to say lungs clear at auscultation and things like that. So a little bit of that stuff. Go ahead.
Well, we give physicians flexibility.
Okay.
So we can have multiple recordings and then the AI merges it together. We have one physician who's one of our medical directors, Dr. Kim, who does not like to verbalize the physical exam in front of the patient.
Okay.
So she'll stop the recording, leave the room, add a second recording where she just dictates the physical exam, and then it merges everything together.
So that's a good example of kind of customizing to a provider's their workflow or their best practice, the way they like to practice, which is important. Do you find that there are other challenges to providers or, I kind of would go back, date myself a little bit. Every office in the world had IBM electric typewriter. In 1 year, they all went out the window with word processors, except for typing on envelopes. So the benefit was so great and so immediate, there was no discussion. It almost seems like that's with ambient AI. Very few providers say, I'm not going to use that. I mean, they just...
So I actually read somewhere that healthcare industry is the industry that's accepting AI the fastest, more so than any other industry. Really, because insurance has been killing physicians. So you have to see more people. You have to do anything you can to make your life more efficient and your office more efficient. And actually, ambient AI, ModMed Scribe 2.0 is incredibly efficient. I can see up to 60 patients in a day. My notes are done 15 minutes after I see my last patient. I don't do any charting at night, at home, on the weekends. I don't want to.
Sure.
So this is by far the most efficient and accurate system I've ever used.
Again, the speed of the adoption has been, it could not have been predicted until it was let loose in the wild. Sure. So maybe the next step beyond ambient AI, depending on the culture and regulations, is agentic AI, where it goes ahead and orders lab tests or medications. Is it going to maybe just generate a list of orders for the provider to take a look at and then check yes and the orders go in?
I don't think so.
Okay.
One of the things we've been careful, we don't even want to suggest dosing regimens because we know some medications require like a loading dose and then a continuous dose. We won't build that into the system because at that point you cease being just an EHR and now you're recommending a medical practice.
Sure.
I don't think anybody wants to do that because of obvious issues, which is why things like the adoption of, I guess, the AI radiology is actually supposedly more accurate than radiologists, but nobody wants to use it because of medical legal issues.
Yes.
So I think that maybe in the future, when everybody grows up with AI and trusts it, but at this point, I don't think it's going to be part of anything for the next few years.
You know, I've talked to a few radiologists who kind of say the same thing that you're saying, that even though in testing, AI, I guess, scanning of radiographic images is very, very accurate. One radiologist told me the other day, they say, well, the texture of an image matters to me. Now, I don't know why that radiographic AI engine cannot be tailored to that particular radiologist, kind of customized, kind of like the other ways you're talking about customizing these things.
So I was actually discussing this morning.
Yeah.
So the latest papers that came out show that the AI for radiology is more accurate than radiologists.
Yes.
So let's say a radiologist has a 3% misread rate, and the AI only has a 1%. The problem is, if that goes to court, that 1% is going to be looked at much more harshly than the 3% of the human.
Yes.
And you're talking about deeper pockets, massive lawsuits, and I think people are a little bit averse to putting their hands in that yet.
Well, you know, that's the thing where the culture, I guess, and the regulations and legal aspects are yet to catch up with the technology. So ModMed, I believe, had some announcements this week at HIMSS. What were those? What are those?
We've basically just recently released ModMed Scribe 2.0 for orthopedics, my specialty, to the general public. So now everybody can use it. All right. And now we're showing that we do a thing called Smart Merge, which is actually very important. So typically what a doctor will do with using an EHR is if they see a patient, they'll pull forward the last note.
Correct.
Well, if you pull forward the last note and then you do an AI recording, AI actually will take and merge them so you don't get duplication of your diagnoses, duplication of your codes, which becomes a problem when you're trying to do the billing.
Sure.
So you don't have to worry about that. Everything becomes accurate.
Sure. Do you have a booth here at
Yes,
HIMSS?
we do.
Okay. Do you remember the number off the top of your head? That's okay.
Don't remember the number.
That's okay. I'm gonna go by it. I'll take a look at it.
Actually, come by. I'll show you how it works.
Oh, I would love to see that. I'd love to see that. Are you gonna be there this afternoon?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. You know, kind of final words about AI. The first year or so in healthcare, the back office stuff of submissions for reimbursement and all the complicated stuff around there, people started feeling safe with that. And so certainly we're in the phase now where it's being pushed forward to the place of, the bedside or the place of service or the actual interaction with the patient. Now, you mentioned that you have something that is patient-facing. What is that? To look something up, I thought you mentioned something about...
With what?
That a way that patients can...
well, they can access...
That's what I'm talking about, yeah.
Yeah, we have web-based access for patients. So before a patient ever comes to my office,
yes,
they can get online, fill out all their paperwork,
okay,
including their history, their preferred pharmacy, so that when they come to the office, it's already there.
I see, yeah. Okay, I got you. Well, final words. Where are we in this brave new world of AI?
I think that we're just seeing the beginning of what AI is going to do in medicine.
Yeah.
I think that ModMed Scribe is already fantastic, and the biggest push in AI now, I think, for physicians is going to be on the back end, because insurance companies are using AI actually against us to downcode our visits. Now, ModMed is actually working on AI to fight that effectively, which will be incredible.
The battle of the AI.
Exactly. One AI versus another.
Dr. Salamon, thanks for spending a few minutes with me on this episode of the Tate Chronicles, live at HIMSS26. You can find more information on this show's program page at healthcarenowradio.com. Until we meet again, here's wishing you smooth sailing, safe harbors.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Okay, my friend. Thank you.
Tate Chronicles transmission ending now.